It would be positively silly of me to begin any review of the third-person action game Quantum Theory without mentioning Gears of War. Now granted, it's my belief that while the Gears franchise is just as awesome as everyone says it is, it's not as original as many would claim. Some third-person shooters that require tactical use of cover that predate Gears are Winback, and more importantly, Kill Switch. But with Theory, there can be no doubt, this game is a blatant knockoff of Gears of War. From the beefy, gravel-throated men in oversized armor gruffly running around and shooting things on down to the inclusion of the so-called roadie run, Theory is undoubtedly a game that would not exist were it not for Gears, or more importantly, the success of Gears. Naturally, such a lack in originality is already a mark against a game from page one. I mean, the game damn near steals its control scheme from Gears, on down to the button. Given that the game comes from a developer in Japan, the whole concept seems rather offensive as a Western gamer. I mean, a bunch of Japanese coin counters looked at the Western market, realized Gears of War was making an ass ton of money for all involved, and concluded, hey, this is what Western gamers want. Let's make that game over again, sell it to Americans who won't know the difference, and it'll be huge. But of course, we do know the difference, don't we? So, that's out of the way. Quantum Theory, apart from having maybe the worst title ever slapped on the package of an action game, I mean it sounds like a damn science class, stumbles right out of the gate because of its clone-like nature. That and because it forces you to compare it to Gears, not only a much better game, but one that presumably has a much larger budget. The graphics in Theory just can't compete, nor can the soundtrack, or even the sound effects. However, I hasten to add, Theory is actually a fairly playable game once you cut through all the Gears clone bullshit. While I can't recommend it to avid Gears heads, who would be much better off playing through either game in that franchise a third, fourth, fifth, sixth, or seventh time, or whatever, I would dare suggest that a less diehard Gears fanatic with time on their hands between Gears 2 and Gears 3 give it a look. It would also be suited to gamers who have never played a Gears game before, but why you would want to start by playing Theory instead of copying a used copy of the original Gears is beyond me, and another story altogether. Theory casts you as Sid, a scarred, surly muscle man clad in armor that no human being could move in. His single-minded goal in this post-apocalypse setting is to destroy the Tower, a sort of living structure that is unleashing something called Diablosis upon the already ailing world, transforming humans into monsters. Like most Asian games released in the States, something might be lost in translation here, because I couldn't make much sense out of any of it. Suffice it to say, the gameplay has to pick up the storyline slack, which is fine since this is an action game. Basically, if Gears does it, so does Theory. It's definitely familiar territory right from the word go. It's just not as good. The setting is pretty cool as the tower really feels alive. The best moments in Theory force you to react to changes in the tower, like walls that suddenly spring up from the floor, or do the opposite, leaving you naked in the open when you thought you had a good position on the field. Other cool moments involve gravity-defying shootouts on the back of flying bridges or worm-like creatures. These moments come a bit too late for the game's own good, but they do come, and once they do, they are, thankfully, used quite often. The weapons the game offers are many and capable, but not necessarily standout. I found myself relying on heavy machine guns, instead of potentially cooler-sounding stuff like a gun that shoots saw blades. The more inventive weapons are just too difficult to get a drop on your enemy with, usually don't come with enough ammo, and the end result is always the same with any weapon. Killed enemies stumble backward and explode into green or red fountains of goo. Now, I'm as big a fan of body-specific damage as anybody, but I can't say I minded shooting the foes in Theory, only to see them burst in brightly colored displays of gore. It's a nice change of pace, and rather satisfying, particularly headshots. Sid isn't alone in battling the tower either, as he meets a female companion along the way, scantily clad in the grand video game tradition that will aid him in battle. Now I use the term aid loosely when it comes to her ability to indirectly deal damage to your foes, but you can summon her at will and throw her. Yes, throw her at your foes. It's random, but it's a very powerful attack that can see her cleaving even your bigger, stronger opponents in half with one direct shot. It's a cool addition to the Gears-style gameplay. The tower's design is kind of cool too, but the graphics can't keep up. Also, the game generically offers doors and openings that Sid cannot enter despite the fact that he blatantly should be able to do so, which is just annoying to me. The game just screams generic all around, point of fact, especially in the early stages. And I did enjoy parts of the game despite myself. It's a solid, playable shooter that just so happens to stand in a long, dark shadow of much better games. Inspiration from the same source material. See Drake's Fortune, Dark Sector, Army of Two, and Kane and Lynch. just to name a few. Bottom line, Theory has its moments, and if you're bored of playing through Gears multiple times and want an almost exact clone of that game with a new campaign and a few additional bells and whistles,